Have you ever felt like life is spinning out of control? Work stress, complicated relationships, and the constant pressure of expectations weighing you down? What if I told you there's a way to rise above it all? A mindset that has helped great leaders like Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius and philosopher Epictetus remain unshaken in the face of adversity. That mindset is Stoicism, the ancient philosophy of inner strength and resilience. In today's video, Stoic Daily will show you how to stop being ruled by external chaos and start living with clarity, purpose, and peace. If you're ready to shift your perspective and take control of your life, let's get started. The art of unshakable calm. The power of emotional control. Have you ever felt like someone's words or actions had complete control over your emotions? Maybe it was a rude comment, a dismissive glance, or a frustrating situation that made you feel powerless. One moment, you're calm and composed. The next, you're consumed by irritation, anger, or frustration. But what if you could cultivate an inner fortress so strong that nothing, not an insult, not a setback, not even a personal attack, could shake your peace? Imagine navigating life's challenges with the same unshakable calm as a Stoic philosopher, never allowing external chaos to dictate your internal state. This is the essence of Stoic resilience, mastering your emotions so that no person, event, or circumstance can rob you of your tranquility. Real life story: the day I chose peace over anger. A few years ago, I found myself in a heated argument with a coworker. It started as a simple disagreement, but quickly escalated. His words were sharp, his tone aggressive, and I could feel my anger rising like a tidal wave. My heart pounded, my fists clenched, and my mind raced with the perfect comeback that would put him in his place. But then, something shifted. I took a deep breath. Instead of reacting, I simply observed both his words and my internal response. I saw how my ego wanted to fight back, how my emotions were pushing me to retaliate. But I also recognized something deeper. My peace was in my own hands. So I chose silence. I let him finish his rant. I nodded and responded with a measured, composed voice. And you know what happened? The tension in the room dissolved. His anger had nowhere to go, and within minutes he softened. Later that day, he approached me and apologized. That moment taught me something profound. My power lies not in controlling others, but in mastering myself. Stoic analysis: the strength in non-reaction. Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest Stoic philosophers, once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This is the foundation of Stoic wisdom. Most of our suffering doesn't come from external events, but from the meaning we assign to them. When someone insults us, it's not the words themselves that hurt us, it's our reaction, our interpretation, and our decision to let it affect us. Stoicism teaches us a radical but liberating truth. Other people do not have the power to disturb us unless we give them that power. Epictetus, another Stoic philosopher, emphasized this beautifully. If someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation. Think about that. The moment we react with anger, we surrender control. We let others dictate how we feel. But when we pause, when we choose not to react impulsively, we reclaim our power. Application: mastering the art of emotional detachment. The next time someone tries to provoke you, whether it's a rude stranger, an impatient driver, or a difficult coworker, pause. Take a breath. Ask yourself, does this deserve my peace? Is my reaction worth the mental energy it will drain? If I don't respond, will this moment still matter in a day, a week, or a year? More often than not, the answer will be no. Instead of reacting emotionally, try these Stoic techniques for unshakable calm. Wide heavy checkmark the power of the pause. Give yourself a moment before reacting. A deep breath can change everything. Wide heavy checkmark the observer mindset. Imagine you're watching yourself from the outside. What would a wise Stoic do in this moment? Wide heavy checkmark silence as strength. Sometimes, the most powerful response is no response at all. Let your silence be your power. By practicing these principles, you'll begin to notice a shift. The world will no longer have control over your emotions. You will. And that is where true freedom lies. Are you ready to build an unshakable mind? Let's continue this journey into Stoic mastery. The power of willing acceptance. Why does resistance create suffering? Why do small inconveniences sometimes ruin an entire day? Why do we let unexpected delays, unfulfilled expectations, or minor setbacks dictate our mood? Consider this. You're running late for an important meeting, and suddenly you're stuck in traffic. Your heart starts racing, frustration builds, and an inner dialogue of complaints begins. Why now? This always happens at the worst time. Why is this road so congested? But here's the truth. The traffic isn't making you suffer. Your resistance to it is. The more we resist what is, the more we suffer. But what if, instead of fighting reality, we embraced it with grace? What if, instead of frustration, we practiced acceptance? The Stoics believe that true peace comes not from controlling the world, but from controlling our response to it. And when we master this, we free ourselves from unnecessary distress. Real life story. Finding peace in an airport delay. A few years ago, I found myself stranded at an airport due to a sudden flight delay. The announcement came over the loudspeakers. The flight has been delayed for an indefinite period due to technical issues. Immediately, a wave of frustration spread among the passengers. Some people jumped out of their seats, pacing anxiously, demanding answers from the airline staff. Others groaned in exasperation, already anticipating a ruined day. The atmosphere was thick with impatience and irritation. I had a choice. I could join the collective frustration, fume over something beyond my control, or I could accept the situation and make the best of it. So, I took a deep breath, found a quiet corner, and opened my book. I sipped my coffee slowly, enjoying the moment. I told myself, I cannot change this situation, but I can change my response to it. By the time the flight resumed, I had finished a few chapters, learned something valuable, and felt at peace. Meanwhile, those who had spent the delay fuming were still upset, carrying their frustration onto the plane. That day, I realized a profound truth. Backhand index pointing right resistance is suffering. Acceptance is peace. Stoic analysis, aligning with reality. One of the core teachings of Stoicism is the idea that our suffering doesn't come from events themselves, but from our judgment of them. Epictetus, one of the greatest Stoic philosophers, put it this way: do not seek for events to happen as you wish, but wish for events to happen as they do, and you will have peace. This is not a passive resignation. It's an active, willing acceptance of reality. Instead of fighting what is, we align ourselves with it. Instead of complaining about the rain, we learn to dance in it. This mindset is liberating because most of our pain in life comes from resisting the unavoidable. We wish people would act differently than they do. We wish circumstances were more favorable. We wish life unfolded exactly as we planned. But life does not conform to our desires. It moves according to its own nature. The more we fight against it, the more we suffer. The moment we embrace reality as it is, we find peace. Seneca, another Stoic philosopher, advised, "Fate leads the willing and drags along the reluctant." When we willingly accept what happens, we flow with life rather than against it. When we resist, life drags us forward anyway, but with far more struggle. Application: practicing acceptance in everyday life. The good news is that we can train ourselves to accept rather than resist. Like a muscle, the more we practice, the stronger our ability to remain calm in the face of life's unpredictability. Here are simple ways to apply Stoic acceptance in daily life. White heavy checkmark traffic jams opportunity for learning. Instead of cursing traffic, use the time wisely. Listen to an audiobook, reflect on your day, or simply practice deep breathing. Traffic exists whether you stress about it or not. Why not use it to your advantage? White heavy checkmark unexpected cancellations chance for spontaneity. If a meeting gets canceled or plans fall apart, instead of feeling disappointed, ask yourself, how can I make the best of this moment? Maybe you finally have time to enjoy a coffee alone, go for a walk, or finish a book you've been neglecting. White heavy checkmark difficult people lessons in patience. When someone is rude or unkind, don't resist their nature. Instead, see it as an opportunity to practice patience and emotional detachment. As Marcus Aurelius said, you can't expect a fig tree not to produce figs. Some people are naturally difficult, that's their nature. Accept it, and you won't be disturbed. White heavy checkmark delayed flights or long lines moments of mindfulness. Next time you're waiting, whether at an airport, in a grocery store, or at a doctor's office, practice presence. Instead of getting frustrated, observe your surroundings, enjoy your breath, and take in the moment. The more we train our minds to accept rather than resist, the more we experience inner tranquility. Final reflection: the power of surrender. Ask yourself, how much unnecessary stress have I created simply by resisting what is? Life is unpredictable. Things will go wrong. Plans will fall apart. People will disappoint us. But none of this has to disturb our peace unless we allow it to. The key to an unshakable mind is simple. Stop demanding that life be different. Accept it, work with it, and move forward with grace. Next time something unexpected happens, remember, heavy checkmark resistance equals suffering. Heavy checkmark acceptance equals peace. The choice is always yours. Let go of judgment, the mind's greatest illusion. What if I told you that much of your frustration, anger, and disappointment isn't actually caused by others, but by your own judgments about them? Think about it. Someone cuts you off in traffic, and you immediately assume they're selfish or reckless. A friend doesn't respond to your message, and you conclude that they don't care about you. A coworker disagrees with you in a meeting, and you label them as difficult or stubborn. But what if your assumptions are wrong? What if the driver was rushing to a hospital? What if your friend was overwhelmed with work? What if your coworker genuinely had a different perspective, not an intent to undermine you? Our minds love to create stories, and most of the time, these stories lead us to unnecessary suffering. The Stoics taught that judgment is the root of emotional distress. If we learn to suspend judgment, we can free ourselves from anger, resentment, and misunderstanding. Real-life story: a dinner that changed my perspective. A few years ago, I made dinner plans with an old friend. We agreed to meet at 7 p.m., but when I arrived at the restaurant, he was nowhere to be seen. Minutes passed, then half an hour. At first, I was just slightly annoyed, but as the clock ticked, my irritation grew. I started forming conclusions. He doesn't respect my time. He's careless. He probably doesn't value this friendship as much as I do. By the time he finally arrived, nearly an hour late, I was ready to confront him. But before I could say anything, he apologized and explained. His grandmother had suffered a medical emergency, and he had been at her house making sure she was okay. In an instant, my frustration vanished. I felt ashamed of how quickly I had judged him without knowing the full story. That moment taught me a valuable lesson. Backhand index pointing right most of the time, our judgments are incomplete or entirely wrong. Had I assumed good intent, or at the very least suspended my judgment, I would have saved myself an hour of unnecessary frustration. Stoic analysis: the power of withholding judgment. Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest Stoic philosophers, wrote, "You always have the option of having no opinion." This is a radical idea. We don't have to form immediate judgments about everything. In fact, the less we judge, the more peace we experience. Most of our suffering isn't caused by external events, but by the meaning we attach to them. Someone ignores your message. You assume they're avoiding you, but maybe they're just busy. A friend cancels plans. You assume they don't value your time, but maybe they're overwhelmed with responsibilities. A colleague criticizes your work. You assume they dislike you, but maybe they're just trying to help. Epictetus, another Stoic philosopher, emphasized this in his teachings. Men are disturbed not by things, but by the view which they take of them. The event itself is neutral. It is our interpretation, our judgment, that makes it good or bad. When we assume negative intent, we create suffering for ourselves. When we let go of judgment, we open space for understanding, compassion, and peace. Application: how to practice letting go of judgment. The key to overcoming judgment is awareness. When you catch yourself making assumptions, pause and ask yourself these 3 questions. 1. Do I know the full story? Most of the time you don't. Before jumping to conclusions, remind yourself that there may be factors you're unaware of. Pushpin example: your boss seems distant today. Instead of assuming they're upset with you, consider that they might be dealing with personal stress. 2. What is a more generous interpretation? Instead of assuming the worst, try assuming the best. Even if you don't know the truth, choosing a kinder perspective can change how you feel. Pushpin example: a friend cancels lunch at the last minute. Instead of assuming they're inconsiderate, consider that they might be exhausted or unwell. 3. Does this deserve my peace? Some judgments are simply not worth your energy. Ask yourself, is this really worth my mental and emotional well-being? Pushpin example: someone rushes past you in a grocery store without saying, "Excuse me." Instead of getting offended, remind yourself, this doesn't affect my life in any meaningful way. Let it go. Final reflection: the freedom of non-judgment. Imagine how much lighter your life would feel if you stopped assuming the worst. No more unnecessary anger. No more pointless resentment. No more stress over things you don't fully understand. Every time you let go of a judgment, you reclaim a piece of your peace. Next time someone is late, unresponsive, or rude, try this. Pause, breathe, and remind yourself, you don't know the full story. Suspend judgment, and you'll be amazed at how much calmer and happier life becomes. Release the need for control. The illusion of control. Have you ever tried to control a situation or a person only to end up frustrated, exhausted, and defeated? Maybe you planned a perfect weekend, only for bad weather to ruin it. Maybe you gave detailed instructions to a coworker, yet they still did things their own way. Maybe you wanted a loved one to change for the better, but they remained the same. The truth is, control is an illusion. We spend so much of our time trying to dictate outcomes, micromanage people, and force situations to go our way, yet the more we resist, the more we suffer. The Stoics understood this deeply. Backhand index pointing right peace comes not from controlling everything, but from surrendering what we cannot control. Real life story, a lesson in letting go. A few years ago, I was managing an important project at work. I had a clear vision, a strict timeline, and high expectations. But there was one problem. My team wasn't meeting deadlines. At first, I thought the solution was to take control. I started micromanaging, reviewing every small detail, constantly checking on progress, giving endless feedback. I believed that if I just controlled everything, the project would succeed. But instead of improving, things got worse. My team felt suffocated and unmotivated. I became overwhelmed, stressed, and resentful. The quality of work suffered because everyone was operating under pressure. One day, I hit a breaking point. I was exhausted, my frustration was through the roof, and I knew something had to change. So I did something radical. I let go. Instead of hovering over every task, I focused on my own responsibilities. Instead of demanding perfection, I provided guidance and trusted my team. Instead of trying to control the outcome, I accepted that I could only control my own efforts. And to my surprise, things improved. My team took ownership of their work. The project started moving forward more smoothly. I felt lighter, calmer, and at peace. That experience taught me a life-changing lesson. Backhand index pointing right: the more we try to control, the more we suffer. The more we let go, the more life flows naturally. Stoic analysis: the freedom of letting go. The Stoics believe that peace comes from understanding what is and isn't in our control. Epictetus, one of the greatest Stoic philosophers, wrote, "Some things are up to us, and some are not." This simple truth can change your life. What's within your control? White heavy checkmark your actions. White heavy checkmark your choices. White heavy checkmark your attitude. White heavy checkmark your reactions. What's outside your control? Crossmark other people's opinions. Crossmark the past. Crossmark the future. Crossmark unexpected events. Most of our stress, frustration, and suffering come from focusing on things we cannot control. You cannot control how others behave, but you can control how you respond. You cannot control every outcome, but you can control your effort. You cannot control external circumstances, but you can control your inner state. The moment you accept this truth, you experience freedom. Marcus Aurelius reinforced this idea in his Meditations. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Application: how to let go of control. Letting go is not about giving up. It's about shifting your focus from control to acceptance. Here's how you can practice it. 1. Ask yourself, is this within my control? Before you stress over something, pause and ask. Backhand index pointing right: do I have direct control over this? Pushpin example: your flight gets delayed. Crossmark: you can't control the airline's decision. White heavy check mark: but you can control how you spend your time, reading, relaxing, or making alternative plans. 2. Shift your focus to what you can control. When you catch yourself fixating on something outside your control, redirect your energy. Pushpin example: a coworker is difficult to work with. Crossmark: you can't change their personality. White heavy check mark: but you can control how you interact with them, staying professional, setting boundaries, and not letting them affect your mood. 3. Trust the flow of life. Life is unpredictable. The more you resist it, the harder it becomes. Pushpin example: a relationship doesn't go as planned. Crossmark: you can't force someone to stay or love you a certain way. White heavy check mark: but you can control how you heal, grow, and move forward. 4. Let go of the need for perfection. Perfectionism is another form of control. It keeps us trapped in frustration and self-criticism. Pushpin example: you make a mistake at work. Crossmark: you can't undo the past. White heavy check mark, but you can learn from it and do better next time. Final reflection. Embrace the power of letting go. Imagine how free your life would feel if you stopped trying to control everything. No more constant stress. No more frustration over things you can't change. No more wasting energy on battles that don't serve you. Instead, you'd have peace, clarity, and focus on what truly matters. So the next time you feel frustration creeping in, pause and ask yourself, backhand index pointing right, is this within my control? If the answer is no, let it go. Accept what is, focus on what you can change, and trust that life will unfold as it should. That is where true freedom lies. Turning challenges into growth. The hidden power of hardship. What if I told you that every difficulty you face is actually a lesson designed to make you stronger? Think about the greatest challenges in your life. The moments of rejection, failure, heartbreak, or disappointment. At the time, they may have seemed unfair, painful, or even unbearable. But looking back, can you see how they shaped you? What if life isn't happening to you, but happening for you? The Stoics believe that adversity is the training ground for wisdom, resilience, and inner strength. Every challenge is an opportunity to grow, if we are willing to see it that way. Real life story. Rejection was my greatest gift. Years ago, I applied for a job that I desperately wanted. It was my dream position, the perfect role at the perfect company. I prepared intensely, nailed the interview, and felt confident. Then I got the email. "We regret to inform you." I was devastated. I felt like a failure. My mind spiraled. Why did this happen to me? Am I not good enough? Did I just ruin my career path? For days, I wallowed in disappointment. But then, I made a decision. I wasn't going to let this rejection define me. Instead of focusing on the loss, I used it as motivation. I identified my weaknesses and improved my skills. I networked with professionals who could guide me. I reframed the rejection as redirection. Maybe this wasn't my path, but something better was ahead. Months later, I applied for a different role, one that I wouldn't have been qualified for without the growth I had experienced. To my surprise, I got the job, and it was even better than the one I had originally wanted. That rejection, once my greatest disappointment, became my greatest gift. Backhand index pointing right, the lesson? What feels like a setback is often a setup for something greater. Stoic analysis. Grow through adversity. The Stoic philosopher Seneca once wrote, "Difficulties strengthen the mind as labor does the body." Just as muscles grow stronger through resistance, our minds grow stronger through challenges. The mindset shift from victim to student. When difficulties arise, most people ask, crossmark, "Why is this happening to me?" But the Stoics teach us to ask, white heavy check mark, "What can I learn from this?" This shift in perspective turns obstacles into stepping stones. A failed relationship teaches you what real love requires. A job loss pushes you to develop new skills and discover better opportunities. A personal struggle deepens your resilience and wisdom. Marcus Aurelius captured this beautifully in Meditations. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. In other words, your struggles aren't barriers. They are the path to your growth. Application. How to turn challenges into strength. Here's how you can apply Stoic wisdom to transform obstacles into opportunities. 1. Pause and reframe. The next time you face a setback, pause before reacting emotionally. Then ask, backhand index pointing right, "What lesson is hidden in this experience?" Pushpin example. You're overlooked for a promotion. Crossmark instead of thinking, "I'm not valued," White heavy checkmark, reframe it as, this is a sign to refine my skills and seek new opportunities. 2. Embrace the struggle as training. Difficulties aren't punishments, they're training exercises for your mind. Pushpin example, you're going through financial hardship. Cross mark instead of complaining, why is this happening? White heavy checkmark, view it as a challenge to develop financial wisdom and resilience. 3. See failure as a teacher, not an enemy. Failure isn't the opposite of success, it's the path to success. Pushpin example, you launch a business and it fails. Cross mark instead of feeling ashamed. White heavy checkmark, analyze what went wrong, adapt, and try again. Thomas Edison, after thousands of failed attempts to create the light bulb, famously said, I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work. This is the Stoic mindset in action. 4. Focus on what you can control. You can't always control what happens, but you can control how you respond. Pushpin example, a loved one treats you unfairly. Cross mark, you can't control their behavior. White heavy check mark, but you can control whether you respond with anger or with wisdom. By focusing on your response, you reclaim your power. Final thoughts. The path to unshakable peace. Life will never be free of obstacles. But what if the goal isn't to avoid difficulties, but to master them? By embracing Stoic principles, you can cultivate a mind that remains unshaken. Heavy checkmark, acceptance. Let go of what you can't control. Heavy checkmark, non-judgment. Don't assume the worst, stay open-minded. Heavy checkmark, letting go. Release the need to control every outcome. Heavy checkmark, seeing challenges as growth. Every hardship is a lesson in disguise. At every moment, you have a choice. Backhand index pointing right, react with frustration or respond with wisdom. Backhand index pointing right, complain about challenges or grow from them. Backhand index pointing right, let obstacles defeat you or use them as fuel for greatness. The choice is yours. Choose wisely.